All right, we seem to be leveling off a bit, so I think we can get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Nicole Newham. I work on the admissions team at Columbia Business School. I'm an assistant director on the recruitment team, and I'm very excited to be here today with 4 current students who are members of Columbia Women in Business. So I'm excited to turn it over to them for most of the webinar, but I am also joined by Jordan Blitzer on the admissions team, who will be managing the Q&A box throughout the next 45 minutes or so. So if you have any questions for myself or for the students, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Jordan will do her best to answer whatever questions she can in that box. And then at the end, we'll have some time for live Q&A. So with that, I will turn it over to our students to introduce themselves. Thank you all for being here today. If we want to start with Liz.
Sure. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining again. My name is Liz Mayer. I am a first year at CBS. I'm originally from Essex Fells, New Jersey, so sort of northern New Jersey, like 45 minutes out of the city. Prior to CBS, I was working in investment banking at a French bank called Société Générale. I worked there for 4 years and then decided to come to CBS for business school. I chose to come here because of the location in New York City. I was here before and I really wanted to be able to stay. And then also my interest is in healthcare for my post-MBA role. So I really liked the recruiting resources and also like the class options available within that industry. In terms of my clubs at CBS, I am on the board of the Healthcare Industry Association as the AVP of Community. So that's mostly planning social events, dinner gatherings, all things community. I'm also involved in the Health and Wellness Club, which I highly recommend and happy to talk about that more. And then Columbia Women in Business and the General Management Association. I mentioned my target industry post CBS is in healthcare, and fun fact is that I went to 17 concerts last year.
Thank you. You were very busy last year.
Apparently. I guess I wasn't working for part of it, so that helps.
Good. Awesome. All right. Thank you, Liz. Up next is Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Rebecca. I'm a first year at CBS, originally from Brooklyn, but I was living in Israel for 6 years after graduating before coming to business school. And in Israel, I was in military, and then I joined a food tech startup where I was chief of staff. So I was doing kind of like a little bit of everything. And a lot of that ended up including like our fundraising and like managing a lot of our financials. And I realized that if I wanted to develop those skill sets, further and in a more like meaningful way, I really had to go back to school and kind of learn these key concepts. So CBS was my top choice for a lot of the reasons that Liz mentioned, but definitely like being in New York is huge. I think going through the recruiting process for banking and seeing what people from other schools were dealing with, like it made such a huge difference. So I'm sure we'll like talk about that later. But I wanted to know that. I also like really liked the idea of having a core, like knowing for sure that I'm going to get like certain like education in certain fields. And because I was interested in banking, like again, being close to Wall Street, having like a really strong connection with Wall Street was important. In terms of the clubs, I'm really involved in Jewish Business Students Association. So we throw a lot of like religious and cultural events for both like Jewish students and non-Jewish students on campus. Lots of like really fun parties. And then I'm also planning the upcoming trip to Israel. It's like a big second year trip that happens every year. So we're really excited for that in like 2 weeks. And then I'm also in the investment banking club, which has just been like super useful for everything recruiting. They like the second years will just like really like spoon feed you everything. So that's been great. And yeah, and my fun fact is that I recently adopted a really cute dog.
We should have put him on the slide next time.
I know, I was thinking about it.
Thank you, Rebecca. Awesome. Okay, so up next we have Adele.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining and excited to chat with you all. I'm Adele. I am originally from a very small town in Kansas, so happy to speak to anyone who is coming to New York for the first time or wondering about that move. But before CBS, I was in the New York kind of greater area in consulting at a boutique firm that focused on food and beverage companies and was looking for a bit of an industry shift. So I chose CBS really for wanting to live in New York City for the first time after having been, out in the area, but never having lived in the city itself. And thinking that would be an important part of networking and just getting to enjoy New York City as a student. I also really liked just the breadth of social impact classes and clubs that CBS had to offer and felt like they were really ahead of other schools in terms of what kind of programming and classes were available. And so I ended up taking advantage of a lot of that at CBS. I was a VP on the Social Enterprise Club, which involved helping plan some of our events, bringing speakers to campus. And then I was also involved with the Running and Triathlon Club, which was a great way to stay active. Post CBS, I am going into consumer finance. I'll be working at Chase since I have just a couple more weeks as a CBS student. And fun fact is I've been to 48 of the 50 states, mostly on road trips. Kansas is a good launching point, but still have North Dakota and Hawaii to hit. So maybe next year.
Thank you. And last we have Allie.
Hi, I'm Allie. I'm from New York. I actually grew up in Manhattan. So if anyone has any questions about balancing kind of, family, friends in New York while also attending business school, can definitely answer questions about that. I've been here since graduating college. So definitely is something that I have some experience with. Prior to CBS, I was working in the retail industry. I was at Ralph Lauren on the innovation team, focusing on business development and strategy. For why I wanted to come to CBS, I love New York. I really didn't want to leave. And I loved everything that CBS has to offer when it comes to its placement in New York in terms of the opportunities for in-semester internships, just the opportunities for expert adjunct professors to come and speak and guest lectures and everything like that. So not so different from what everyone else has said, but definitely very important to me. In terms of what I'm involved in on campus, I'm on the board of the Retail and Luxury Goods Club as the AVP of conference. So I planned our conference this year. We have an annual conference. It's really fun and exciting. I'm also on the board of the VC Club. Also similar to Rebecca, I'm on the board of the Jewish Business Students Association. After CBS, I'm looking to potentially transition into consulting with a focus in retail consulting, but I also am very interested in VC, specifically in the consumer space. And my fun fact is that I can solve a Rubik's Cube in under a minute.
That is impressive. Awesome. Thank you, Allie. All right, now we're going to transition into, talking a bit about what CWiB is and what they do on campus. So I'm going to keep it with you all to take it from here.
Awesome. Yeah, so I can just give a quick introduction. CWiB's mission is to foster a lifelong community that enables all Columbia Business School women to achieve their personal and professional aspirations through programming, mentoring, coaching, and advising that provides education, support, and friendship to our members. So CWiB, I think, is one of the largest clubs on campus. It has over 500 members. And there's lots of room, I would say, for the club to play kind of whatever role you want it to play in your CBS experience. So it could be a really big part of your experience if you get involved in the board, in planning events, or it could be kind of a smaller part of your experience if you just want to be a member, attend the events, kind of pick and choose. And I think the mission statement does a really good job of capturing that the club offers a community which balances sort of both professional and more like fun resources. So it's kind of a nice mix of fun and serious. And I'll let Rebecca speak a little bit more about kind of all the different elements that CWiB has to offer.
Definitely. So I think I'll just take these like one by one. So career and corporate relations. like a lot of times, this was like the main way that I see the CWiB helping with like getting internships and job offers. Like a lot of times alumni of CWiB will reach out to the board with like internship and job opportunities, and the board will then share those with the CWiB community. And I think it was getting like so overwhelming in the regular Slack that they opened like a whole new Slack just for career opportunities. And I think that like the power of the CWiB network, like in professional communities, especially like in New York City, is just so strong. Like people really enjoy their experience in CWiB, and so they wanted to like hire people that were in CWiB. So I think that's really nice. The conference, I'll leave for a later slide. I think we're touching that later. And then events, like kind of like what Liz was saying, these can really be like anything. I think just this semester, CWiB hosted like some female entrepreneurs from New York City to come speak about like their companies, their like journey as a founder. They've done collaborations with like other clubs like Gourmet Club, Tech Club, like African Business Association, like really anything and everything that could be like remotely or closely related to things that like women at CBS care about. And I think like what's cool is that if you have an idea for an event, like you can really just take initiative and run with it. Like you don't need to be on the board. Like there's a ton of funding for these things, and people just really want like as many cool events as possible to like really foster that sense of community within CWiB. For leadership development and mentorship, there were two things I wanted to talk about. So the first is that CWiB has an alumni mentorship program where you get paired with a CWiB alumna in New York City. And I actually met with my mentor this week, and she was amazing. Like I came from the food industry, and it was really important for me to connect with like women working in food in New York City, just to like get different perspectives on like how you can do that. And like we meet at like a cute little coffee shops and have like these really fun conversations. And like, it's just nice to like branch out and have like even more opportunities to speak to people who are part of the CBS community, like even from many years ago. And then the second piece is that CWiB also gives you the opportunity to like be a mentor yourself. So because we're so close to the undergraduate campus, there are a lot of opportunities to work with like undergrad women at Columbia College in Barnard. Like I know this semester there was an opportunity to mentor seniors at Barnard who are starting their own companies after college. And I think like that's really cool, like just this intergenerational aspect and kind of connecting the university as a whole. And then Women's Week, I think we're speaking about in a few slides, so I'll pass it off.
Ellie, I think you're on.
Sorry, I was muted. Clearly can't get adjusted to Zoom still. So I'll talk a little bit about the conference. So every year CWiB hosts a conference in the fall and brings in, just really spectacular, successful, inspirational women leaders throughout various different industries. So this year's conference theme was To New Heights, kind of connecting to the idea that we just moved to the Manhattanville campus. And there were two, so the day is kind of filled with various keynote speakers and then panels as well. So the keynote speakers really just, they were kind of fireside chats, really just an opportunity to hear from leaders in various industries, and really just great opportunities to connect with women, really great networking opportunities as well. And then various panels. So this panel actually featured on the screen I went to. It was a retail and luxury goods. It was a retail panel actually moderated by a current student, Eileen, who's featured on this slide. Is a second year. She just started her own company actually. And she was moderating a panel of recent grads and Paige is actually an EMBA student about their experience in the industry. So I believe prospective students, I think I saw this question in the Q&A, I believe prospective students are also invited to the conference. So definitely keep an eye out for that because we love to really just engage everyone who's interested in coming.
Great. And then a more recent event that just actually wrapped up a couple of weeks ago is sort of an extended version of the conference, which is Women's Week. And that really highlights what women, both Columbia alums and just broader women in the New York area and the broader business community are doing. And so the theme for 2023 was Fueling Futures, and was really, there were a bunch of different panels kind of on different topics about how do we, as emerging leaders, collectively build a more equitable future. So there was a panel on kind of forward-thinking capital allocation that's highlighted here, some really great food from Melba's in Harlem, amazing Southern food. And then one event that I went to was on sort of climate change, and we heard from just a really amazing mix of panelists on what they are doing within their companies in different kind of areas of sustainable business to try to mitigate climate change. So really a great event for hearing a breadth of perspectives. I don't know if anyone was able to make it recently, but just another way to kind of build your network and meet some really amazing panelists.
Thank you. And I see there's a screenshot from the CWiB Instagram, and I'll just plug that anyone out there should follow it, because it's a great way to stay connected with the community and see what kind of events are coming up if you're interested in attending. I am a follower as well, so I encourage everyone out there to give them a follow. All right, thank you all for giving us an overview of, Columbia Women in Business and what the role is on campus, and, kind of the presence you all have. And I'd love to open it up now to Q&A. So if you have questions that have come up, again, for myself from an admissions perspective, or for our students on the webinar, please feel free to drop them in the box, and we will do our best to get through as many as we can in the time we have here. So I'll turn it over to Jordan to start calling some out.
Yes, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Some good questions coming in. Keep them coming. This one is coming from Vedika, and her question specifically is around what the process looks like to join the CWiB board. But I'm wondering if maybe one person wants to tackle that question, and then another person might be willing to tackle just generally joining clubs at Columbia Business School, what that looks like. I know this picture is from Club Day, so maybe someone could just kind of chime in on that front too.
Yeah, so for the CWiB board, I can take that. I think that there's usually there's the co-presidents, vice presidents, and assistant vice presidents. And the co-presidents and the vice presidents are typically second years, and the AVPs are first years. And I think with CWiB specifically, it's an interview process. So the second years will kind of interview the first years that they want to join working underneath them. But I would say in general that with clubs at CBS and probably at every business school, it's very inclusive, in general, there's a spot for everyone. Everyone will have leadership opportunities. So I think that sounded like it's very competitive, but it's there's room for everyone.
I can take the second half of just clubs in general. So the way the club process works is really early on in the semester. We have a club fair featured on the screen, where you get to learn about all the different clubs on campus. And then from there, you have an opportunity to join whatever clubs you want to join. And if you are interested in taking a leadership in those clubs, then you can apply from there. And like Rebecca was saying, every club has kind of a little bit of a different process for how they go about electing their board. But for the most part, you kind of go through what teams are available on the board, what you would be interested in, and then you apply. And also, again, it's not as competitive as it sounds. There are so many positions available on so many clubs. So really everyone that I know who wanted any sort of board position was able to get one. And it's really it's a great opportunity to take on a leadership position pretty early on in your business school experience before any recruiting really starts. It's something that you have on your resume that you can talk about in interviews. And then, leading into your second year, you can then reapply to be a VP and lead the team on the board. So just opportunities all around.
Allie, I feel like this question is a good sort of piggyback to something you talked about around internships. And so the question coming in from Avni is, how have you been able to balance the core at CBS with recruiting, more specifically internship recruiting, but generally recruiting, because I know we have first years and second years on the call, and club involvement? Like, how do you balance everything? And maybe each of you want to take a stab at answering that in your own way.
Yeah, sure. I can kick it off. So I think this is something that you hear a lot during orientation and also throughout the whole process, but there really are kind of like three priorities at any given point in time. Like you're balancing recruiting, career stuff, academics, and social. And it's all about like what is a given priority at any given point in time. So for more formal so I recruited for a consulting internship. And so recruiting did take a lot of my time in the fall semester. And it was just a matter in terms of balancing the core with recruiting. It was just, everyone's kind of going through it together. So while it is a lot, it is intense. It's 100% doable. And it's about like, leveraging your classmates for help when you need it. Everyone is in a learning team. So you're within your cluster, you're assigned to a learning team. So you have kind of assigned people who are kind of like there to support you throughout the process from an academic standpoint. And yeah, the school does a really good job also of like making sure that things aren't like conflicting from a scheduling standpoint. So that's something that doesn't even need to be thought about.
Maybe just to add to that, totally agree with everything Allie said. I think two things to add are, one, on learning teams. It's really nice because I think most learning teams have a dynamic where like I was able to say, okay, I have a really big week for recruiting. Like I'm not going to be able to be as like into the problem set this week as I would usually be, but like I can really step up next week. So you kind of have like are able to like allocate resources in your learning team, however you need like all the members need you to. And then the second thing that really helped me is there are no classes on Fridays. So my strategy was to kind of use Fridays, like try to think of them as like a work day, and using those just to like get ahead on work, get ahead on coffee chats and emails and all the recruiting related things. And yeah, just like using all those hours productively, even though there's obviously a huge temptation to just be like exploring the city instead.
Yeah, it sounds like your Fridays were a lot more productive than mine on first semester list. But to jump in on kind of a related point, I think another aspect that helps is the clubs really early on. So for example, there's like the more formal recruiting tracks, but for me, I was on a little less of a formal path. I was recruiting for tech and consumer finance. And so CWiB was actually really helpful in terms of just finding second years. There was kind of like a matching process for finding second years who were interested in the same type of, who had recruited for the same types of things I was looking for. And that ended up making the biggest difference for my recruiting process, to hear, who had considered the exact same companies, what they had learned, and just kind of preparing for that was a really good supplement to like more formal resources through the Career Center. And I think that's something that whether it's CWiB or some of the more professional clubs, you get that good mix of support from the second years as soon as you arrive on campus to just guide you through that fall semester. And that makes the recruiting part of it feel a lot more manageable.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is just that like of all the priorities that Allie mentioned, like everybody's journey in business school like looks different. So if you're doing like the formal recruiting of consulting or banking in the fall, then like your fall is very recruiting heavy, and like maybe you're not as involved in like clubs as you would want to be, but then like spring rolls around, hopefully you're done, and like you can take on like a lot more responsibilities in the club. So I think it's just kind of having that like flexibility that what you don't get now, you'll get later, and things are always kind of moving around.
Thank you all so much. There are a lot of questions coming in around something you touched on, Adele, the matchmaking. So I'm wondering if anyone could probably talk a little bit more about how that works, like how you are matched between first and second year students. And then also how you're matched as a student with an alumna, like what that process looks like.
Sure. I guess I can speak to the between first and second years, and then maybe someone else can speak to the alumni program. For first and second years, it's sort of like a form where you indicate as a first year, like what's your background, what's your area of interest, and then you're paired with sort of like a family. So like, I think it was like 3 or 4 students, it's a mix of first and second years. And mine ended up being a little heavier on second years. And the idea is just, it's a smaller group where, you know, CWiB can be a very large club and it can be a little hard to like make inroads without something a little more structured. And so the family was really like a group of, you know, 4 or 5 of us that would go to dinner a few times each semester. And so that was one, you know, that I guess could have been either a more personal or a more professionally geared setup. And in my case, it ended up, just because the career interests that we all had were so similar, it ended up being just a really valuable professional resource. But I think a similar process happens each year in some form where it's kind of about matching similar interests among students.
Yeah, I think for the alumni program, it's like very similar. Like I remember I filled out a form and you wrote about like what you did before business school, what you're looking to do after, and then you could select like different industries that you're interested in, and kind of like of all the factors that you put in, like which ones are the most important. Like, is it important to you to be with someone who like is from New York City, or like, I don't know, like there were all these different categories. And I think they really do make an effort to like make the pairings, you know, what the mentor and the mentee want.
Thank you so much. Nicole, maybe to give our students a little break for a second, do you mind answering the question around how long our program takes to complete? Do we have a 1-year program? Do we have a strictly 2-year program? And maybe anything about the program generally that you think would be worthwhile for the prospects to know.
Yes, definitely. So all of our students here today are full-time MBA students. So we are going to focus on that mainly, but I will just, before we dive into those options, just briefly say that we do have some EMBA options, executive MBA programs. So if you're someone out there with closer to 10 or so years of work experience and are interested in continuing to work while you achieve your MBA, I definitely encourage you to check out our website and go to the EMBA page to learn more about the different options and programs within those programs. But in terms of the full-time MBA, we have 2 entry points that follow a slightly different format. So our first entry point is in August. So this is your traditional 20-month, you know, roughly 2-year MBA program. You'd start in August, be here for, you know, the first 2 semesters, go out and do a summer internship, and come back to finish your second year and graduate in May. So this is a 2-year full-time program. We also have a January entry point, which is pretty unique to Columbia Business School. It's still the full-time MBA, you're still a full-time student, but you're following a bit of an accelerated schedule. So you would start in January, you would start in a spring semester, and instead of going out and doing a summer internship, you would stay on campus through the summer and continue to take classes. And then in the fall, those August students would come back and you would join their you would merge with their class to finish out your second year together and graduate in May. So that's a 16-month program, so about 1.5 years. Again, both are full-time programs. We don't have any, you know, true part-time MBA programs. So if you're interested in learning more about the difference between August and J-term, definitely encourage you to visit our website. This summer, we'll hopefully be doing some J-term specific events, so definitely stay tuned to learn more about that program option.
Thanks, Nicole. So we have a couple questions on the topic of intersectionality and allyship. So I'm wondering if maybe someone can speak a little bit more about what CWiB does in terms of allyship and supporting other affinity clubs on campus. And partnering with other affinity clubs on campus, and maybe giving a little perspective on the breadth of diversity within the club and intersectionality within the club.
So I don't know much about what CWiB specifically is doing. I'm not on the board. I know generally across Columbia, there are like a large number of like cultural and identity-based student organizations. So there's Cluster Q, which is for the LGBTQIA community. There's Black Business Students Association. There's Latin American Business Association. So there are many like cultural and these types of affinity groups. There are a lot of partnerships that go on between the clubs. So there might be certain events that are like kind of co-hosted by CWiB and Cluster Q, and it would be on a topic that's, you know, relevant to both of those groups of students. I'm not sure beyond those events. I just haven't been involved in much of the like formalized planning, but from sort of an outside perspective, there seems to be a lot of kind of like cross club organized events.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I the only
Okay,
thing
go
I'll
ahead.
add, sorry, the only
No,
thing I'll
no.
add, CWiB is open to everyone. So actually, like I have a guy friend that joined CWiB. So although it's Columbia Women in Business, it's really just about, you know, promoting Columbia, like women in business and networking and all of that, but it's not exclusive in any way.
Yeah, I have a few things to add. So I remember this past Women's Week, there was like a panel about like male allyship with women, and that was like one of the big events. And then I also think I think it was Liz who mentioned in the beginning that CWiB is CBS's biggest club, and that's because like everyone joins it because there's just so many events. So I think the population of CWiB is reflective of like the diversity in the CBS class, which like there are so many stats about online that you can read. So like we really have like the diversity of the class because basically everybody is in this club. And I know that like this year in particular, like when the presidents that are currently the second years, like they made intersectionality like a big emphasis when they were speaking at the beginning of the year. And I know that there's like board members that are dedicated to like diversity and intersectionality in terms of like planning the events. So it's definitely like top of mind and like a big emphasis for the board this year.
Thank you so much. So a question came in around women in tech. And I know that this may hit home for some of the women on the panel. So does CWiB bring light to women leaders in tech? Are there any past events that you can talk about? Or was there a tech panel at the CWiB conference or Women's Week this past year?
I'm trying to think of something specific. I know that I feel like there definitely have been. I just can't, I don't know if any of you guys are thinking of anything.
I think there's an event this week with like co-fertility where the founder, it's like a startup that has to do with like reproductive health and like creating equality for like egg freezing. So I think that I just like saw a flyer about this earlier. I think she's coming in to speak this week. So that's like an example of a women founder in tech. But I don't remember specifically for like Women's Week or some of the bigger events. I think they kind of bring in founders all the time. And I'm sure a bunch of them are in tech.
Yeah, and I think there was also a collaboration. I know the FinTech Club had sort of like an alumni event that was about like bringing alumni back to campus and just helping facilitate networking with current students. And I remember seeing that some of the speakers were recent, female graduates, and I can't remember if CWiB had a formal presence with that or not, but there's definitely a lot in terms of bringing women leaders in tech back to campus.
Yeah.
And definitely just like, I guess, from that kind of health tech perspective that Rebecca was mentioning too, they also brought in Kate Ryder, who's the founder of Maven Clinic. I don't know if that was a CWiB thing, but that had like a really huge turnout.
I think that was CWiB affiliated. I remember that.
Yeah. And she was great.
So what are each of your favorite CBS campus events or traditions?
I think this will be a popular answer, so I'll squeeze it in first.
Don't take
Um,
mine.
There's this tradition of CBS Matters, which is within each cluster, people will take turns giving presentations about themselves, really anything they want to share about their lives. So sometimes it's something that might have been like a really difficult time for them. Sometimes it could be like something light and funny, but it's a really nice way to get to know your cluster in the beginning and then to kind of stay connected to them throughout the rest of the semester. So like the core ends for the most part after the first semester, but CBS Matters will be scheduled periodically through the rest of our time at Columbia. And so it's a really nice way to periodically reconnect with your cluster. We usually like order some sort of food and listen to whoever's speaking that day. And you just get a real appreciation for everyone you're surrounded by and their diverse backgrounds.
So I was deciding between that and one other one. So I'll go with my other one, which is also a popular one. CBS has a semesterly show called Follies. I'm not actually involved in Follies, but I am an active viewer of it. And a lot of my friends are very involved. And what Follies is every semester, the Follies Club works to play. It's basically like a sketch comedy show, but all based on CBS, kind of just like inside jokes about the business school experience. And it's a combination of recorded skits and then also a live show. And it's just a really great opportunity to kind of, it's a fun opportunity. It's really just a fun experience, take a break from everything like school related and also see a lot of the talent that is present at CBS. There are some really good actors and singers and, just writers in general. So it's just a lot of fun.
I'm attending my first one next week. I'm very excited.
I just joined for the first time in my final semester and wish I had done it earlier. So highly recommend getting involved in Follies if you can. I would say one thing that just wrapped up is Cluster Cup, which is kind of paired with Social Impact Week. And so but it's not only for people who are interested in social impact, but really it's about the entire community, supporting anyone who wants to maybe do an internship in something social enterprise related. And the school provides a certain amount of funding for people to be able to take those jobs over the summer. And so one part of that is the social impact auction, where classmates will just auction off whatever. I mean, it can be a cooking class. We have like a Peloton instructor in my class who offered like go to the gym with him and get a personalized workout. And I'm actually going to grab cocktails with a professor later tonight at like a potion making cocktail experience. So very excited for that. And yeah, there's just a lot of fun kind of things up for auction every year.
Okay, well, it's hard to go last. I was also going to say Follies. And they do have a YouTube channel, and like I may or may not like sometimes listen to their songs when I'm like on runs. But the one that I was going to say was like rugby happy hours, like the rugby club. I'm not even sure if they play rugby, but they do host a happy hour every week at like the same bar on the Upper West Side. So I think that's fun because like, there's like some people who go like literally every week, but I think like other people will go like once or twice a semester. But I think it's nice because you get to like mingle with people that like maybe you see in class, but like don't have an opportunity to speak with outside of class, or just like, I don't know, like meet new people in like a fun casual setting. And also the CBS band will often like play at this bar. So it's just like a good time.
Lots of things to look forward to as students. This is good intel. I like this question a lot that Hallie sent in. What empowers you most about being a woman in business school? It's a hard one.
Yeah.
It's like a very thought-provoking question.
Yeah, it's not you have to think about it for a second.
I think for me, seeing, I mean, the feeling here is very much like it doesn't feel like there are more men than women. So like just speaking in class and stuff like that all feels like we're on, like equal playing fields. I think beyond that, I've been lucky to like be able to have a lot of really great female speakers listen to a lot of really great female speakers. So the founder of Maven Clinic I mentioned, I'm in another class where a really like impressive woman in the education field came to speak to us, who was involved in like changing public school systems across the country. So just hearing from them and being able to kind of like put yourself into their shoes, and also hearing about like the challenges that they faced as female founders at like in doing fundraising or whatever it was, or different attention from the media, like addressing the challenges that existed, but seeing how they overcame them and like have been really, really successful in their careers. I think that has been really interesting and eye-opening to me.
Yeah, piggybacking off of that a bit, one of the keynote speakers that came to the conference this year was Sally Krawcheck, who's just a very like influential woman in finance, and she recently founded a new company called Elvest. It's really fascinating, and on her mission is all about just empowering women in business and making sure that there's no pay gap and everything like that. And I think just hearing from her and hearing like the energy that she had as someone who has been such a successful woman but still wants to like kind of pay it forward for future generations, I think was really inspiring. And it just was I just left feeling so empowered. And it's not something, like Liz said, like you sit in your classrooms and it's not like women are outnumbered by men, so it's not something that's on my mind 24 hours a day. But just hearing from her and everything that she was doing just made me feel like I really do want to make more of an impact and take more of like get more involved in that. So I have since then. But I think just like hearing from speakers like that and just making sure that we're supporting each other has been really impactful.
Yeah, I would just add to that, like the executive in residence program. So during orientation, they had a few of the executives in residence come to speak with us and just share like a short blurb about their background. And these are people that, live and work in New York City and have like huge achievements. And you can just book a meeting with them basically whenever you want, like through the Columbia system, which is kind of wild. But there were a bunch of women in that panel. And I remember one of them was like Chase's first female investment banker ever. And she spoke about like, it was crazy, but like, without going too much into detail, like she spoke about basically like wanting to publish a book about her experience in finance and no one would publish it. So she just bought a publishing company. Like these women are like badass. And I think like having access to them and just like getting to hear their stories is like amazing.
Yeah, I would echo what everyone else has said and just add quickly that I think being a woman, I feel at least, is actually like the best way to go through CBS. Like, not that, like, I just think the community of women is really amazing, and that many of my strongest friendships, like, it is just amazing how much women, whether it's within CWiB or just from your cluster or however you meet them, like really want to support each other. And I feel like that has just kind of surprised me, even compared to like other jobs or other, college, undergrad experiences. Like, I think the amount that women really want to look out for each other at Columbia, has just surprised me in a really positive way.
And just adding one more thing to that, I think that also extends to like the alumni community as well. Like the fact that we even have this alumni mentorship program and there's, so much interest in it, I think speaks a lot to that. The fact that, alumni want to continue to be involved, they want to serve a mentor role is really special.
Y'all said a lot that was inspiring to me, so thank you. Okay, this is a more like tactical question, but still for the students, and maybe Nicole, you might want to chime in here a little bit too. How do you navigate through choosing the right elective classes how does the program or clubs maybe help support you in this area? Do students have to figure it all out themselves? What support is available?
I can start. It was really overwhelming to me. So I think this is a really good question, because there actually are resources. You just kind of like have to know how to best approach it. So the main resources that come to mind for me are, you have an academic advisor. Each cluster is assigned to an academic advisor. So they're always a good resource to kind of say like, okay, this is what I'm thinking. Like, what do you think of that? Another thing that is useful through the clubs, like I think through any club, but particularly the professional clubs. I asked a lot of second years. I mean, we had just had like discussions in large Slack channels about like which classes second years recommend. And so having that feedback is really helpful. And I started just like writing, like I literally had a note on my phone of all the classes and professors that had been recommended to me. Because a lot of times it's actually like the professor is what people are recommending. And then the last thing for me was just like, if you know there's a specific type of class that you're really like an industry or like a function that you're really interested in, you can kind of like sort all your, like you can sort by those types of things when you're looking at classes. So if you have things that you know you want to prioritize, you're like able to do that. And I'm sure more people have thoughts.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that Liz just said. I think two things I'll say two things. So the first is, what's great about Columbia is you get to campus on day one, and if you don't exempt out of any of the classes, your schedule is actually handed to you. So you don't need to think about that for your first semester because it's just the core, which I really appreciated because there's just so much going on when you first get to campus that it's nice to have that kind of figured out, settled, and you just show up to your classes. So I really appreciated that. The other thing that I think is somewhat unique about CBS is, since we don't have majors, you can take classes in anything that you're just generally interested in. Like I am not doing anything in my career that particularly relates to healthcare, but I'm really interested in it. So I'm looking at taking a healthcare class next semester that people have just recommended. People say that it's a really great class. And I think that is kind of, you come to business school because you want to like network and pursue a certain career, but also it's this unique opportunity where you can just learn. And I think the fact that we don't have majors really lends itself to that environment.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we have time for maybe one last question, because I know that there's some like wrap up information we want to make sure you receive before we log off. So I'm just poking through to see which is going to be the last lucky question. I guess maybe to wrap up, would each of you share one piece of advice that you have for those on the call who are starting out on their MBA application journey? Something maybe you wish you knew, or a piece of advice that you want to share?
I can kick it off. I think if you're thinking about applying far enough in advance, I would recommend taking your GMAT GRE as soon as possible, so that you can focus on that and then focus on your application separately. That was something that was really valuable to me, to like not have to do everything at the same time.
I think also it like this is probably obvious, but I think it does show through to admissions in applications if you like have done your research. So if you're able to talk about like specific classes or clubs that make you at Columbia that make you excited, I think that can kind of just like prove that it's really something that you're invested in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, speaking to as many current or former students as you can to just like get a vibe place. Because I think like once I had gotten into a few places and was like doing like the more in-depth research and like speaking honestly with people, you really can like tell a difference. And I think you just have to think of like in the culture. And I think you have to think about like this is different than college, and that like you're a real person now, like you have work experience, you're like maybe in a relationship, like you have other responsibilities and things going on in your life. And it's like, where can you picture yourself that you think like you'll be really happy? Like for me, I was like, I don't want to move back to America and not live in New York. Like that's like not a thing. So, you know, like that can like very easily determine like which place is right for you.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. And just say one last thing building on that is be really clear with yourself, like at the start of the journey, about what's most important to you in the school, because so many schools are great. And as you talk to students from different schools, it's very easy to get swayed into, oh, this would be great, or maybe I should think about this. But once you start school, like your time is very limited, and you do need to sort of converge on what your main paths are and kind of keep in mind what your goals were for why you started business school. So just kind of having that like maybe literally written down for yourself of like, these are my goals, like knowing that they'll change, but just have something to guide you that you can keep coming back to as you begin the journey of exploring and having a lot of information and new opportunities thrown at you.
Yes, totally echo what Adele said. And I can also offer a piece of advice from an admission standpoint, along with everything that our students just offered you. It's to really reflect on, why do you want an MBA? Why now? And why at Columbia? Those are the big three questions you should definitely be asking yourself as you start on this journey. And we design our essays for you to intentionally reflect on that. So definitely something to keep in the back of your mind as you're starting out. And again, everything our students just said, I fully agree with. On the speaking to students piece, I dropped a link in the chat that I would encourage everyone to use. These are our admissions ambassadors, so feel free to use this portal to reach out to students who align with your interests. It's a great way to get to know the school a bit more personally. But with that, thank you to all of our students who joined today. It's so great to hear your perspectives. It really, brings so much more color to the whole process and the experience at the school. So thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us. And for everyone who joined the call, who joined the webinar, thank you for taking the time to learn more about us. If you want to learn more, I encourage you to visit our website, where you could register for campus visits or virtual information sessions. Our admissions office is open Monday through Friday. If you want to drop in, one of our admissions counselors would be happy to chat with you. I listed the email address and main phone number that you could reach us at. And in terms of CWiB specifically, I encourage you to visit their website along with Instagram and check out the prospective student page to get connected and learn more. But with that, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. And we look forward to, connecting with you down the road. Thank you all again. Take care. Bye.